Hello and a warm welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We continue our coverage of Archbishop Desmond Tutu's death in South Africa. The remains of the late Nobel laureate, Archbishop Emeritus, now lies in state for the public to pay respects at the St. George's Cathedral in Cape Town, South Africa. It was an emotional sight for some as the hearse arrived at the church and his coffin was borne by 6 priests into the church after a brief ceremony by the Archbishop of Cape Town, Tano Magoba. The late cleric wished for a simple ceremony at his death.
In a simple pine coffin, the mortal remains of Archbishop Desmond Tutu arrived at their final resting place on Thursday. The anti-apartheid icon will lie in state at Cape Town's St. George's Cathedral for 2 days ahead of his funeral at the weekend. South Africans formed long queues outside the church from the early hours for their chance to bid farewell to the man known as Tata, or Father. The Archbishop Tutu died on Sunday, aged 90. The Nobel laureate had requested the cheapest coffin and did not want any lavish funeral expense. A Requiem Mass funeral service will be held on Saturday, January the 1st, where President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver a eulogy. The Archbishop of Cape Town, Tano Magoba, gave details earlier today on how things will proceed for Thursday and Friday.
People will come into the cathedral and they will offer their prayers in whatever form they want to around the high altar where we have placed his coffin. And at around 5, the cathedral doors will be closed, and then we will have just a quiet compline. Compline is night prayers by some of the clerics. The Angelus will still ring at 12 midday, and then tomorrow again 9 o'clock the Arch will arrive, and he will be there lying in state, and people can come and pay their last respects to the Arch, and then after that on Saturday that will be the funeral.
The cathedral, from which Tutu served as the first black Archbishop of Cape Town, was a safe haven for anti-apartheid activists during repressive white minority rule. Tutu will be cremated and his remains interred behind the pulpit, from which he often preached against racial injustice.
Hundreds of mourners have been queuing up to pay their respects to Archbishop Desmond Tutu, whose body lay in state at St. George's Cathedral. Well, speaking outside the cathedral, mourners paid tribute to Tutu, saying he was the voice of the voiceless and always the voice of reason. Now the public will have an opportunity to view Tutu's body from 9 a.m. local time and 5 p.m. on Thursday and Friday, ahead of a Requiem Mass funeral service on Saturday, January 1st.
He taught me how to laugh. He taught me how to cry. And he taught me, one thing, he taught me how to pray.
Always used his voice to the benefit lesson for me is to always be courageous.
He was always the voice of the voiceless and always the voice of reason.
He was a legend of Christian. Politician in many ways, but a people's person everywhere right through the world.
It is an immense loss. There'll never ever be anybody like him again. I know, because I know him from childhood. He admitted me to the choir. He confirmed me. And he was there with every milestone in my family, my life and my family's life. So I'm deeply honored, absolutely honored to be here today.
Be that kings, be that presidents, be that princess. He walked with all of them, and yet he could go to Guguletu, he could go to the lowest parts in South Africa and bend to pick up a piece of paper to show his humility. So humility, mercy, justice, these were the character traits of the arch that I espoused to, which he, I think, took all of what the Gospels are saying about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. When I walked through there, I reflected on, the wonderful gift of the arch to us, a gift of Christ to us through the arch. And, to what extent his legacy will be revered, but also to what extent his legacy will be practiced, the values that he stood for.
In fact, most of us, we were part of those that were walking on the dusty streets with him in the difficult times, in the times of struggle, struggling for justice in the country. And now we feel Guti, he has left legacy, and then also we feel Guti, we call it Umzila in Xhosa. And then also we just want to say goodbye.
Thank you for the part that the arch played in my freedom and, in the freedom of so many other South Africans, and for his message, just to say thank you.
He has had a tremendous impact in not only in Cape Town, but in the entire country, the whole world, for his steadfastness, his courage, his commitment, his strength, and never say die attitude for years, especially when days were dark, when it was difficult in the 1980s, when we faced the repressive apartheid regime. He was one of the 4 figures in the foreground of that struggle, and really he set a sterling example for us all, especially for the young ones of the younger generation to look up to.
Well, in Johannesburg, the St. Mary's Anglican Church also held a memorial service and wreath-laying ceremony in honor of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Tutu's grandson, Sabiso Gatie, spoke at the service, thanking his grandfather and saying he loved and missed him dearly. The mayor of Johannesburg, Mfopalatse, was also seen laying a wreath during the ceremony.
Restoring this precinct so that the legacy of our dearly departed.
We miss you. We love you. We thank you.
Well, joining us now is our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia. Hello, Betty. I'm sure it must have been a long day today, and it's day 4, after the death of the Archbishop. His body is now lying in state. How's the atmosphere in the country?
Well, it's holiday, but people are aware of the loss. And people have been paying tribute. Not everybody can come here, and many people have been advised not to come down because it's a long way to Cape Town, and we're still in the 4th wave of the COVID here, the COVID surge in the country. So people have been paying tribute, as you've shown the cathedral in Johannesburg. In other provinces, in KwaZulu-Natal, people have been paying tribute to him. he was a fearless voice that nobody can forget. Nobody can forget. So that's the common thread running through all the tributes. He spoke truth to power, no matter what color, of the power we're talking about, black or white. So that's the general feeling, and they really miss him. His voice speaking fearlessly, his laughter, his dance, and there's so many things to remember about him. And it wasn't just apartheid that he fought against. He fought against people's rights in different colors, in different forms, not just in South Africa, but also other parts of the world.
Well, you've mentioned a bit about him, and from today's ceremony, one could, see the simplicity of the arch. He requested a wooden coffin and also no lavish funeral. This was the kind of person he was, isn't it?
This was the person he was. You heard Professor Ling's earlier saying he walked among kings and queens, and he walked amongst paupers as well. So he fitted in anywhere. He could hold anybody's hands to say, no, I'm here for you. So, and he said he didn't want any fuss. He didn't want, one of the statements he made before he died, he didn't want to be kept alive at all costs, and he didn't want any fuss. The funeral category he'd been given, which is a special official funeral, category 1, involves the military, but he didn't want the military and all the fanfare involved. So I think the trade-off had been done, and where the involvement of the military here would just be to hand over the flag to the president, to hand it over to his widow, Malaria Tutu. So he's that simple, and he was simple, but he was a force to be reckoned with. No one can deny that. So we'll see that play out here. He wanted to be cremated. He will be cremated. I'm standing outside the St. George's Cathedral, by the way, and here is where his remains will be buried on Saturday after the Requiem Mass, and he'll be buried in the crypt in the church.
Well, one notable thing about the Archbishop is also his role in the anti-apartheid struggle of South Africa. Talking about his legacy now, what will the country miss about him?
Oh, Layo, we've been talking about this the whole day, the whole week. I'm sure you've been listening to me. He was a fearless fighter who spoke truth to power. He was sympathetic to the downtrodden. You've heard the many people you lined up who have been speaking. These are just regular people, not even officials, speaking of their own experiences. Those who have worked closely with him, those who have experienced him, those who have lived around him, have experienced him in one way or another, and in his simplicity, and then his fearlessness, speaking not just about apartheid, speaking against apartheid and injustice anywhere in the world. He fought against, he fought for the rights of the gays in the country and anywhere in the world. Remember his daughter, Reverend Mpo, who was a cleric in the Anglican Church. But he gladly married her to a woman. He spoke for the rights of children, protection of children, young people in the world, and wherever rights are being abused. He spoke on the situation in Myanmar at the time. He spoke on the invasion of Iraq. He spoke on the Middle East crisis. He even was an envoy in Nigeria regarding the June 12 crisis that we had. So he stood for justice, social justice. He stood for the rights of anybody, big or small. And that's why people are going to miss him for his fearlessness and speaking truth to power, and his ability to just be a simple man. You should see him dancing with just anybody. Or one of his close friends, the Dalai Lama. He was sympathetic to the issue of Nepal as well. You see both of them playing like kids, where you hear him say something like, oh, you better behave like a holy man. The cameras are watching you. Funny, and his characteristic cackle, high-pitched laughter, all those things made him, the man that everyone is celebrating today.
Indeed, there is a lot about him, and South Africa will greatly miss him, and even the world will greatly miss him. But thank you so much, Betty.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. The World Health Organization chief says the combination of the Delta and Omicron variant is driving a dangerous tsunami of COVID-19 cases, as the COVID-19 variants, which are highly transmissible, are raging across the globe. The WHO is warning that they have posed twin threats, driving up the number of infections. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus' words come as the US and countries across Europe reported record new cases. He also called again for vaccine equity and urged people to take stringent measures to curb the surging infections.
This virus will continue to evolve and threaten our health system if we don't improve the collective response. Right now, Delta and Omicron are twin threats that are driving up cases to record numbers, which again is leading to spikes in hospitalizations and deaths. I'm highly concerned that Omicron, being more transmissible, circulating at the same time as Delta, is leading to a tsunami of cases. The pressure on health systems is not only because of new COVID-19 patients requiring hospitalization, but also a large number of health workers are getting sick themselves. The unvaccinated are many times more at risk of dying from either variant. Omicron is moving so quickly. In addition to vaccination, public health social measures are also needed to stem the wave of infection, protect health workers and systems, open up societies, and keep children in school. In the year ahead, I call for leaders of government and industry to walk the talk on vaccine equity, both by ensuring consistent supply and helping to get vaccinations actually into people.
Let's continue now with our year-end review of stories that shaped the year 2021 in different sectors. This year saw Kenyan children receive breakthrough malaria vaccines. Children were inoculated with the world's first approved malaria vaccine, Mosquirix, in Western Kenya in October.
Hundreds of children in Kenya's malaria-prone western region were inoculated with doses of the newly approved Mosquirix malaria vaccine on October 7th. At the time, Phoebe Watende, a 23-year-old hairdresser who lives in Siaya County in western Kenya, says she had enrolled her 2-year-old daughter in the trial program because her family had suffered frequent malaria infections.
We have had a lot of malaria-related challenges here. Some have suffered mental illnesses, others have died. Especially in our home, we have had a lot of malaria problems. Even after someone has been treated, they still get sick again from malaria after a few months.
Her daughter received her 4th and last dose at Yala Sub-County Hospital. Mosquirix has been 30 years in the making. Experts hope the fight against malaria might gain considerable ground following the WHO's recommendation that RTS, or Mosquirix, a vaccine developed by British drug maker GlaxoSmithKline, should be widely given to children in Africa.
Having been a trial sub-county for the vaccine before now the confirmation and the rollout of the vaccine, we've seen a reduction in the cases of the severe form of malaria, and this can be checked through our reporting systems. The numbers have really gone down. So this vaccine, for sure, it is going to help us mitigate on the suffering that has been brought about by the severe form of malaria.
Since 2019, the vaccine has been administered to infants in Ghana, Kenya, and Malawi in a large-scale pilot program coordinated by the WHO. The World Health Organization has said healthcare disruptions linked to the coronavirus pandemic helped malaria kill 69,000 more people in 2020 than the previous year, but the worst-case scenario was averted.
Our next year-end story looks at how a self-proclaimed Ugandan wastepreneur, Faith Aweko, saw an opportunity to turn plastic waste into fashionable pieces. She began collecting bits of discarded waste and turning them into durable and sustainable handbags.
Kampala, Uganda's capital, churns out 1,000 tons of garbage per day, according to the East African country's National Environment Management Authority, NEMA. Most of it ends up as litter in the city, clogging vital sewage and drainage systems, causing floods and creating unfavorable sanitation conditions. But what many see as trash was viewed as a solution-based business opportunity by entrepreneur Faith Aweko. Aweko and her employees turn plastic waste from sites like the well-known Katizi landfill site into fashionable handbags.
I like to call myself a wastepreneur because I deal in waste, and this is something that most people don't want to associate with waste, plastics, dump sites, garbage, and yet this is something that is providing employment to women who are collecting the waste, to women who are sorting, to women who are washing, and also women who are processing and making the beautiful bags that Reform Africa is making. And then we are also able to provide an income for ourselves and the other employees. And I'm also championing in saving the environment.
Aweko and a Reform Africa team regularly collect, wash, and hang out discarded plastic bags from Kampala's dump sites. She says the jobs and positive effects on the environment she is creating more than make up for all the hard work and criticism she sometimes encounters. Once the bags are clean and dry, Aweko uses what she calls a heat presser to flatten and fuse them together. The pieces are then cut into patterns and stitched together to create colorful bags and accessories. Aweko currently employs 8 women whom she hired and trained from the surrounding community. Part of her vision for the Reform Africa project is to encourage more Ugandans to recycle and help people learn new income-generating skills.
I am very happy with this job because it has transformed my life very much. It has created a living for me and my child. I am now also able to assist my spouse when he is struggling. This job has really helped me. The other thing is, I like that we empty communities of these polythene bags, which saves the environment.
Aweko is a graduate of the Social Innovation Academy, senior outside of Kampala, which helps young aspiring social entrepreneurs take their ideas to market. Aweko's bag sells for between $16 and $25. She has deals with several local shops and markets, heavily using social media platforms to land more clients in the West.
And that's all we have for you on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Layo Adegoke.